It's June 26, 2012. On a hot summer night in Long Beach, California, an old woman is in the bathroom of her tiny house, worried about her future. Her daughter spends 6 days a week working a nothing job, but at least she has hope for her computer-savvy grandson, who is sleeping peacefully in the room above her. Silicon Valley is not so far after all, and with his talents, they could finally be lifted out of poverty. Suddenly, the old woman hears strange voices in the hallway. She opens the door very carefully, only to find a team of policemen searching through her stuff. At once, they grab her and bring her to the living room. There, she sees her 15-year-old grandson in handcuffs. Flying into a hysterical fit, the old woman begs the police to let him go. She tells him that he is just a little boy who tries his hardest to stay out of trouble. Unbeknownst to her, a few months prior, her seemingly innocent grandson had hacked and brought to their knees numerous tech giants like Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, AT&T, and PayPal, causing them millions of dollars in damages. Shocked half to death by this rude revelation, she wondered, how could a mere 15-year-old dropout take on many tech giants with billions of dollars in budget and win? This is the story of Eric Taylor, better known as Cosmo the God. And to understand how he got here, we need to take you back to how it all started. At the mere age of 15, Eric had already grown into a giant. He stood 6'7" and weighed 220 pounds. Despite having the physique of a quarterback, he was an outcast at school. His friends pranked him numerous times, all for their own sick amusement. He had no communication with his father because of this strange relationship between his parents. In addition, his mother was too busy to even check in with him. He was a troubled teen who went through life without any sense of direction. His grandmother thought he was a good kid, but little did she know what he was slowly getting into. To get away from his harsh social life, Eric fell more and more into the endless rabbit hole that was online gaming. Like similar kids in his situation, he was practically raised by an Xbox. There, competitive gaming got so serious that it bled out into the real world, and players were typically petty types with way too much time on their hands. Once, Eric was booted out of a game by an opponent using cheat codes. Angry and wanting revenge, he opened a door that changed his whole life. Going online, Eric found the same script that the cheater used, allowing him to boot others from the game too. Though it was a very simple program, it was his first experience with hacking. Kicking people off a game server was fun and all, but Eric did not want to stop there. To him, hacking was better than gaming because you got to control someone else's whole life rather than just a cartoon character. And so, wanting to take things a step further, he had a brilliant idea. An idea to really make this cheater pay. In those days, gamers thought it was cooler for someone to have a username that featured their actual name, instead of a nickname or a random collection of numbers and letters. Why be Sniper420 when you could just be Todd? What these gamers didn't understand is that sharing your name with a bunch of strangers online was perhaps not the best idea. The thing is, by knowing someone's real name, you already have a major asset that would help you get access to the rest of their intimate information. To hack the cheater's Xbox Live account, Eric needed their credit card number. However, he only had the cheater's name and email address. Sure, this would not be enough to get past Windows security, but after racking his brain, Eric figured it would be enough to get through another paying service. Well, it was a little streaming company you may have heard of, known as Netflix. Now, Eric had always been savvy with a computer, but what made him a true genius of hacking was a technique known as social engineering. Any security expert can confirm one fact: a good defense is only as strong as its weakest link. Well, as it turns out, the weakest link to many tech security systems is people. Typically, customer care agents who are given way too much access to users' private information. What Eric did was call Netflix customer care and pretend he was the cheater, claiming he needed a password reset. He provided the cheater's name and email address as his own. Without thinking twice, the customer care agent gave him the password reset. So, after Eric got access to the cheater's Netflix account, he suddenly also had access to the cheater's credit card information. From here, Eric could easily walk through the doors of the cheater's Xbox Live account. As a matter of fact, he could get through any of the cheater's accounts without any trouble at all. You might be wondering, how did a 12-year-old kid manage to pull off a stunt like this? Well, as you may recall, Eric was very big for his age. Not once was he correctly identified as a teenager. Plus, being an outcast at school gave him plenty of time to watch people. He watched, and he learned. With social engineering, the trick is to pretend you know more than you actually do. Customer care agents can easily sniff out when someone is just seeking information. To circumvent this defense, Eric always acted like he knew more than he did. Whenever he was asked to confirm any details, he always provided more than he was asked. For instance, if he was asked to provide the last 4 digits of a credit card, he would provide all the digits. This would lure the customer service agents into a false sense of security. By acting like he was a client who needed help, or a coworker who needed security details to circumvent a work problem, customer care agents were only too happy to provide the rest of the information. What Eric was doing with this technique was to craft an interesting workplace puzzle. That way, the human mind just can't resist the temptation of providing the answer. What began as a silly prank on a cheater exposed one of the largest gaping holes in online web defense. Eric had broken the matrix, giving himself unreasonable amounts of power. There was no reason to stop there either. Just how far could he manage to push things? With a foolproof way of hacking anybody's account, Eric replicated the security breach against hundreds of users. He even went so far as to share his knowledge of hacking with numerous other individuals online. Hacking Microsoft and Netflix accounts was simple, but pretty soon, Hulu, Best Buy, Apple, PayPal, and AOL accounts also fell to his ingenuity. In time, he built up quite the reputation, and other hackers couldn't help but notice. By this point in time, Eric had given up on school completely. He hated the building, hated the teachers, hated his classmates, and hated the commute. After dropping out, his grandma thought that all he did was play games all day. Unbeknownst to her, her grandson was crawling deeper and deeper into the criminal underworld of the internet. It was not like his parents were around to stop him either. After crawling deeper and deeper into the dark web, Eric was approached by a hacker known as Josh the God. Josh was a representative of an underground hacktivist group known as UG Nazi. Internet freedom was under attack, and groups like SOPA and CISPA wanted it heavily regulated. To protect their way of life, UG Nazis sought to unleash a barrage of hacks and security leaks on these organizations. It was a secret cyber war, and as a cyber super soldier, Eric would be a very important asset. Interested in their cause and in having friends who liked the same things he liked, Eric joined UG Nazi. That was when he assumed the alias Cosmo the God. Pretty soon, the group started to grow in reputation. They even had a Twitter account with which they spread their knowledge of cybercrime. Sometimes they would warn someone before they were hacked, and then hack them anyway. This demonstrated how powerful they were, and how powerful Cosmo the God was becoming too. With UG Nazi unleashed, no website or tech company was safe. Without any sense of self-preservation, they went on hacking spree after hacking spree. Sure, they hated SOPA and CISPA, but then they hated a whole lot of other groups too. As teenage boys, they only really needed a single motivation for hacking someone: boredom. Though UG Nazi fancied itself as an underground hacktivist group, the reality is they were mostly just a group of teenagers who liked to hack for fun. Sometimes they had social and political motivations for their hacking targets, but other times, well, they did it for the lulz. These teenagers had levels of fame and power that few people achieve in their lives. And what happens when you give fame and power to aimless teenage boys raised by Xbox? Well, your guess is as good as mine. One of their first high-profile targets was the fast food chain Papa John's. With Papa John's, the provocation was a silly one. One moment, the fast food restaurant had been late in delivering an order of pizza. The next day, it found itself completely re-evaluating its entire cybersecurity structure. This was a move that would cost the company millions of dollars. And what was it worth to UG Nazi? Just a couple of laughs. After Papa John's was 2 hours late in delivering pizza to UG Nazi, Cosmo and his friends hit them with a DDoS attack. By overwhelming Papa John's servers with an overwhelming amount of web traffic, Nazi caused them to crash. Hence, the fast food chain was unable to receive or process any web-based orders for a significant amount of time. With their website down, the company lost millions of dollars. Another one of their high-profile targets was the UFC. The company had offered financial support to SOPA, one of the groups that sought to regulate internet freedom. Hacking into the UFC was tough, as the company actually had decent web security. But then, they had one glaring weakness in the form of a man, Dana White. As the president of the UFC, Dana liked to stay in the public eye. This made it easy for Cosmo to scrape his personal information from the web. From there, using the same old social engineering techniques, Cosmo and his friends were able to log into the UFC's Network Solutions account. If you were a customer care agent who saw that Dana White himself was asking for a password reset, well, you don't ask any questions. Taking control, Nazi redirected the UFC website DNS to one that they controlled. On January 21st, 2012, fans who visited the company website were shocked to find themselves not at their usual destination, but at one controlled by a group of teenage trolls. UFC released a statement saying their security systems were not compromised, but then the evidence was clear for everyone to see. Embarrassed, Dana White released an angry statement about Cosmo and his friends, saying, "We'll see how tough they really are." Even so, Nazi got away clean. So far, Cosmo and his friends were doing well for themselves, but then they wanted to break even bigger. As such, they decided to target one of the most notorious websites in internet history, 4chan. Cosmo and his friends hated 4chan. They held the belief that everyone who used 4chan was a child molester. The website was an infamous gutter of the internet, home to all kinds of depraved individuals. Therefore, this belief was not far from the truth. For Nazi, the goal was simple: redirect all 4chan traffic to their Twitter account. This would virtually ensure they became urban legends. Their fame would spread far and wide across the dark corners of the internet. To implement this hack, Nazi attacked Cloudflare. This was a network company that supported not just 4chan, but a huge chunk of the web as well. As their most complicated hack yet, Cosmo and friends wanted to replicate the technique with which they used to hack the UFC. However, they hit a complicated snag. The problem was that Cloudflare CEO Matthew Price was computer savvy enough to have enabled two-factor authentication. This meant that Nazi would require access to his phone to hack his account. Left to any other hacker, they would have stopped there. But for Cosmo, the solution was simple. First, Cosmo purchased Prince's social security number online. Then, he set up a fake Google Voice account in the name of Matthew Prince. After that, he called AT&T customer service on that number, impersonating Prince. He told the customer care agent that he wanted his calls and texts forwarded to a new number. This was a bit of a strange request, even to ignorant customer care agents. But after Cosmo gave them Prince's social security number as a security check, the pathway became clear. Almost like taking candy from a baby, Cosmo took Cloudflare and a large chunk of the web away from Matthew Prince. Till today, Matthew Prince is still bitter about this hack. Though the attack only lasted 4 minutes, Nazi had achieved notoriety forever. By taking over Cloudflare, all traffic from 4chan ended up on their Twitter feed. This was a ballsy hack that earned Cosmo and friends fear and respect from all corners of the internet. Finally, they had hit the big time. Well, with heightened fame came heightened expectations from their fans. What was this daring group of talented hackers going to do next? Some other groups may have lain low for a while, but not Cosmo and Nazi. They were at the peak of their power and their megalomania. Why on earth would they stop now? The problem with hacking, for the thrill of it, is it's an escalating game. To get the same thrill, the stakes have to get higher and higher and higher every time. With higher stakes came more attention, both the wanted kind and the unwanted kind. Largely neglected at home, these hackers felt like the gods of cyberspace. But there were other eyes peering at them as well. For their next trick, Nazi decided to hack 500,000 credit card numbers online. They did this by targeting the British billing agency WHMCS. They hated WHMCS because the company provided billing support to scamming sites. So, this hack was a way for Cosmo and Yuji Natsu to participate in their own twisted version of social justice. To access WHMCS details, social engineering was once again the key. Cosmo called HostGator, the web host for the WHMCS website, and talked his way into acquiring sensitive login information. After that, he logged into the WHMCS administrator website. From there, it was a matter of child's play for him to control WHMCS's encrypted data. For their first trick, Cosmo and friends deleted a large chunk of WHMCS files. For their second trick, they leaked a 1.7 gigabyte treasure trove of company data, including 500,000 credit card files. For their last trick, they took over the WHMCS Twitter account and stated that WHMCS should not have ignored their warning about scammers. A service used by millions of people around the world ground to a halt, and it was all in a day's work for the teenage pranksters. The funny thing about being at the top is, the only way to go is down. While Cosmo and his friends were jubilant over their WHMCS hack, the federal government had had enough of their antics. Hacking for the lulz is all well and good, but these vulnerabilities could not be tolerated. If a couple of teenagers could simply waltz through the security system of the top financial institutions, why couldn't some terrorists do the same to the top national security agencies? Uncle Sam had put up with these teenage trolls for too long. Finally, it was time to call in the cavalry. Though most of the world went to bed and woke up every day without any knowledge of Yuji Natsu, tech companies, cybersecurity companies, and federal agencies had entered a state of emergency. To stop them, the FBI started an initiative known as Operation Card Shop. Operation Card Shop was the largest coordinated law enforcement attack on credit card scams. With millions of dollars of funding in their pocket, the FBI sought to take down many infamous credit card hackers in one fell swoop. It was a 2-year undercover operation taking place in over 13 countries. To fight cybercriminals, the FBI used cybercriminals too. By posing as hackers who admired him and wanted to get in on the fun, the FBI got closer and closer to Cosmo until they got enough information to track him down. Sure, Cosmo was a smart kid, but the FBI literally had all the assets of the federal government at their disposal. In the end, he proved to be no match for them. What happened was, FBI agents posed as buyers for stolen credit cards. By establishing an undercover carding forum called Carder Profit, they created a fake market for the stolen cards. This attracted Josh the God, the key member of Yuji Natsu, who had recruited Cosmo. The undercover agents then set up a fake meeting with him, claiming they wanted to buy credit cards. When he arrived at the location, Josh did not discover any eager buyers. Instead, he found undercover FBI agents who were only too happy to slap handcuffs around his wrists. Whisked away into custody, the FBI interrogated him thoroughly. Finally, he gave up the other members of his outfit. It was the middle of the night. Eric Taylor was fast asleep. Local law enforcement agents arrived at the Long Beach home in their black vans. There were no sirens. They came in very quietly, careful not to raise any alarms. Warrant in hand, they snuck into Cosmo's grandma's house, right up to his room. Before Cosmo knew what was going on, he received the rudest awakening of his life. He got flashbanged and handcuffed, completely disorienting him. He may have been a god of cybersecurity, but his home security still needed a lot of work. Recovering his hearing and vision, he was shocked to see that he was surrounded by as many as 30 law enforcement agents. The commotion had woken up the entire neighborhood. Cosmo's neighbors came out of their house and lined the streets, wondering what was happening. To their shock, they saw a 15-year-old Cosmo being carried away by the authorities in handcuffs. His grandmother stood helpless as the feds tore through his stuff and confiscated every single technological device in his house. As he was still a minor, Cosmo was going to avoid a lot of jail time. Still, he was in a lot of trouble and entirely at the mercy of the authorities. In a surprising move, they gave him two options. He could either be incarcerated in a juvenile prison for 3 years, or he could be on parole until his 21st birthday, during which he would fully cooperate with the cybersecurity agencies. Cornered and with nowhere to go, Cosmo took the deal. He was just a 15-year-old kid after all. Lucky for Cosmo, the FBI valued his talent. If not, he could easily have gotten swallowed up by the penal system and amounted to nothing. The thing is, Cosmo was exceptionally good at getting past cybersecurity loopholes, and these security agencies wanted to know his secret. After all, what were they paying cybersecurity engineers for when a 15-year-old could easily break all their defenses? Besides, it takes a hacker to catch a hacker. In any case, Cosmo's days on the wild, wild west of the dark web were over. For years, information on who Cosmo was scarce, as he was still a minor. Now, though, people are beginning to learn of him and his exploits. Cosmo has come a long way since then. These days, he runs his own cybersecurity company and hopes to help law enforcement agencies track down the bad hackers he had rubbed shoulders with in his youth.